Hey, we are two Star Wars nerds, and we are back with another Dark Force Rising book club. I believe this is episode 3. We're going through chapters 13 through 18 of Dark Force Rising. So let's talk about it. Okay, so first off, from the top, if you want to stay in the loop with each one of these book club videos as they come out, you can actually go to starwarsbook.club. It's the URL so great Lucasfilm didn't pick it up, so we did. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But you can, do that, or you can join the Discord. The link is down in the description below. Basically, what we're doing is we're documenting our way through the EU. And right now we're going through the Thrawn trilogy. And what we're doing is we're just breaking this into kind of bite-sized chunks where we can talk through it on a much deeper level.
And this is our first time going through the Thrawn trilogy.
Yes, it is.
Important
distinction to make. Yes, you get to, if you've never been through it or if you want to relive it, you can do so vicariously through us, or you can join us. But then in addition to that, if you guys didn't know what we're going to do after the Thrawn trilogy, we're going to go back and read everything. We're making a really comprehensive list of what we're going to go through post Return of the Jedi forward to the very end of the EU. It's going to be super exciting. And there's a ton of stuff. A lot more than I thought.
It's a long journey.
It's a very long journey. Till we go to be with the Lord, probably. There's so much to go through. But yeah, so what we're doing today, chapters 13 through 18. If you haven't seen the other videos, you can go catch up, or you can just watch this. It's super, super interesting. So, kind of the best way we know how to do this. Yeah, you might see our cat there, but the best way we know how to do this. I was going to show you guys him. Anyway.
He's pretty cute.
I'm going to kind of generally walk through what's happened.
He's much better at that than I am.
Yeah, I'm the long-winded one. You're more like succinct and to the point. And then anytime you can interject, add your thoughts. I'll even make sure I leave space for you. Otherwise, I talk endlessly. But chapter 13.
That's why we're a good team.
Yeah, I think so too.
It wouldn't be good if we both talked all the time or both didn't have much to say.
It'd be super boring if we both had nothing to say. We are a good team. Cool. Chapter 13. This is Leia is still on the Nogri planet. Mirek? Is that what you said? I don't remember what it's called.
I have no context. I read what I see, and it becomes definitive to me. So that's not how other people say it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a definitive way to pronunciate all these things. But Leia is still on that planet, dealing with the whole thing of, remember, Cabrak took her and Thrawn finds out all this craziness. And so, I mean, you're just thrown into action. It's just continuing. Thrawn is coming. Like, Thrawn himself is coming to where Leia's at. Coming. And it's crazy because she describes, like, Imperial bombers that are overhead, like, ripping and roaring in the skies for overhead cover to make sure no one escapes. Terrifying stuff. You know, it's just like Timothy Zahn does a really good job at like putting you in the fear.
Right.
And basically what needs to be done is they hide in like a booth in the wall. I was kind of confused on how.
Me too. I was trying to imagine it, and I imagined something, but I'm not sure if it's right.
And, I didn't care to, like, stop and analyze the structure, but I was like, it wasn't like a closet. It was like a weird, they described it as a booth in the wall with, like, a door. But it was, like, hidden. Didn't really make sense. Anyway, they turn C-3PO off, and it's, like, Leia, Chewbacca, and C-3PO. They're, like, in there, and Thrawn's, like, terrifying. And then she sees him, and she's like, oh, Han wasn't kidding. He wasn't crazy. Like, he really is blue with red eyes. She talks about, like, the authority he carries and stuff.
Can you imagine hiding and seeing him?
I was imagining it. It was pretty terrifying. I was like, because I was just like, he's gonna see her, you know.
I was shocked he didn't.
Yeah. He dropped
the ball there.
This is a more meta topic on Thrawn. In found it very interesting how much he gets wrong. Because they kind of paint him in this light, or every time I hear about Thrawn, it's like he never knows, or he never has bad information. You know, he never knows wrong, all this. But it's like he missed that they were in the room. He has wrong hunches. More often than not, he's right.
Right.
But nonetheless,
his record is pretty good.
We'll
give him that. But he's not perfect.
Yeah, but I like that
it makes it more real.
Humanizes a non-human. But anyway, but yeah, Thrawn is angry, like not unhinged, but he's just angry, and he's questioning Carraback and like poking serious holes in his logic for why he did what he did after his mission failed. And he arrests him, and he says, "We're going to interrogate you." And there's a lot of pushback from the matriarch. And
she's saying this is how our clan does things when people lie or do things wrong. We have our own way of dealing with them, and he has his own way. I guess. Yeah,
and he's just not about it. And he actually bombs like the surrounding area. Like he calls in this bomb, but there's something really interesting where like Leia was like hyper focusing with the Force.
She does a lot of crazy stuff.
And so like when he like clicks the light on his like radio or whatever, it like blinds her, and she's like overly sensitive to all this stuff going on. Super interesting. But anyway, I love Leia. But yeah, he bombs the region surrounding them as a reminder that's like the Empire is in charge. You will not lie to us. And the matriarch just kind of keeps like backing off.
Yeah, and even you see it in these chapters, and I just finished the book, so I am a little ahead. But you see throughout the book and in these chapters that we're talking about today that I don't like is it matriarch?
It's not matriarch, but it's really close.
Okay, well, matriarch. And
that's just what I've decided to call her.
She seems to just be in such a denial about the Empire, and she like thinks they're so helpful, but it's like, okay, I've never had someone like help me and bomb everything around me and say like, you're welcome, like that I'm helping you. Like, I just some crazy form of denial, I guess.
I think it's two things. I think instead of denial,
fear.
It's like submission, because one, they call him Lord, so there's a very clear power divide.
Well, and you know what? I think we need to pause and talk about this later, because there's more that you don't know coming up.
Okay. Well, and I mean there is a whole bunch of stuff even later in this that's brought up.
Yeah.
But I'm
trying not to bring in that perspective yet and keep it just on these chapters.
Well, that's fair. Well, at least right here, it's very much just a submission.
Yeah.
You know, and there are, I mean, I didn't like take scrupulous notes on all of this, but there are like pretty minor things where you see those seeds, you know, where there is a distrust or a denial, not distrust.
The matriarch's just kind of hard to read too. Like she's very closed off.
Yeah, I see that for sure.
At least that's what I interpret.
Yeah, and yeah, the Nogri culture is just very interesting as well. But Thrawn says something. He has this whole monologue, but he says this line where he says, "I am the law now." I'll try my best to run. He's like, "I am the law now."
Is that what it sounds like in the audiobook?
A little bit. Not really. I couldn't get hired for Thrawn for sure. I am the law now. No, that's even worse. Anyway, he says, "I am the law now." And it was just really cool line. I'm like, dang. It's pretty BA, man. But yeah, then he orders the public shaming of Carraback. And basically says, I'm going to make an example out of you. I'm going to make you a complete fool, and I'm going to shame you. That's chapter 13.
Chapter 13.
Yeah, do you have any other thoughts on 13 before we move on?
No.
Okay. Chapter 14. This one's crazy. This one is an amazing chapter.
I think they're all amazing.
They all are really good, but this one in particular.
Packed.
Yeah, there's a lot. So you pick back up with Luke, because if you remember kind of the whole thing, Leia, Chewbacca, and C-3PO went to meet with Kabarak, and they end up on Mirkir or whatever. The Nogri planet. And then you have like Han and Lando with Leia. They went with the Dreadnoughts that took off. Luke doing his own thing. Like Luke normally does, Luke is following the Force, doing his own thing. He's at Jomark. You know, we knew he was going there. But yeah, he's at Jomark, and he's trying to call out to... The father from Mortis. Yeah. He's trying to call out to Jeruus, who he thinks is Joruus Sabaoth. Doesn't know the details yet. And it's just not working, and he's like... It's really interesting perspective. The whole big thing here is he's trying to figure out... He thinks he's a Jedi Master like Yoda.
But he's very different.
And he finds that he's not. Yeah. He finds his mansion, and he meets him, and he gets very confused very quickly, because he's like, this guy's like really harsh, and he's different.
Like the opposite of all my training.
Yeah. It's super, really, really, really interesting. And there's this whole like rant. Jeruus just keeps ranting about everything. You know, he's just like a crazy mountain mystic.
Yes.
But there's this line he said that the wrong place at the wrong time, the epitaph of the Jedi. JCB, Jeruus Sabaoth. That's my notes, JCB. But I was like, man, that's a kind of a good point, that the Jedi always seem to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Kind of getting the short end of the stick.
For sure.
But yeah, Jeruus says that he wants Luke to be his apprentice.
He's very upfront.
Yeah, he is. He doesn't hold anything back.
Which I respect.
You respect the father?
Yeah.
The father from the Mortis arc?
Yes, I do.
But yeah, he's very upfront about, like, you don't need to go do your own thing. Just be with me. Learn from me. And Luke's kind of like, I'm not...
Luke's not feeling his vibe.
And he's trying to be like, respect him as a Jedi Master, but then also be like, I got my own stuff to do.
Insane.
And
I think it says like he thinks he's insane.
Oh yeah,
multiple
when
times.
he's talking with R2 in this chapter.
Okay, they say it a couple more times too.
Yeah, I think it happens more than once in this chapter, but he's like, this guy's not right. And then Jeruus starts rattling off about the twins, and he's like, how does he know about the twins? You know, he's like, we kept that kind of under wrap.
Right.
But anyway, Luke has one idea on how to rebuild the Jedi Order, and Jeruus is like totally out there and is like, you need to like be in control of everything around you at all times, even people. And
yeah, I don't think that's quite a Jedi Order.
No, and
it's a dictatorship.
Luke is very confused. And so then Luke starts like poking a little bit, and he's like, kind of what you're describing sounds like you're with the Emperor. Essentially. It's like you're kind of describing the Dark Jedi. This is what's interesting, is they keep saying Dark Jedi, because I don't think that Sith, like, I don't think the word Sith was like really used yet from like publication date. I'm not sure. Maybe somebody would know. If you do know in the comments, let me know. I think Sith didn't come until later in the 90s. Anyway, because they keep saying Dark Jedi. And then Jeruus kind of claps back, and he's like, well, he wants to know about Mara Jade. And so it's just super, super awkward. And this whole time, Jeruus is basically like, just come with me. And he's just kind of like moving around.
Right.
And what's interesting, this was a really good thing that Timothy Zahn did. There's a parallel. So in an earlier chapter, Luke comes across a dispute in a cantina, and he uses the Force and some intellect and logic to satisfy it without violence, without anything crazy. Comes to a decent resolve. Jeruus basically walks into like a debate, and he just puts himself in the middle of it to settle it, and just straight up like electrocutes one of them. And Luke is like,
it's different.
Like, The only time I've seen that,
Yeah.
is bad. And then this was kind of interesting because it's not like force healing, but he wants to try and like ease the pain through the force. And Jeruis is like, why would you want to do that? Like, pain is the best teacher. They'll never forget. So, anyway, there's a bunch of contrarian views here. Before finishing, I feel like I've just been saying too much overview.
I think it's good.
Oh, I know you do, but do you have anything to say?
I just think Jeruis and Luke's back and forth throughout the entire book is very, like, somewhat comical to me, because not like it's intentional comedy, but they're just so different and like they don't understand each other.
Like the odd couple.
It's entertaining to read, and it's like I'm like, Luke, why are you with him so long? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Because it's not like, oh, okay, this is just a different approach. Like, you get inside knowledge of what he's thinking, yet he like stays. And I know he's like, this is really the only other Jedi master. This is my only option. So he's trying to weigh that, but they're just so weird and awkward together. And
they're very different.
Like, they make me laugh, and I don't know that was the intention, but
I mean, probably not, but I'm glad. But now I'm just thinking of like, what if there was like a 90s sitcom of like they get an apartment together and they have to live as roommates,
in the mansion.
In the mansion. That's so good. That'd be so funny. But I think like the next level down is, they are kind of diametrically opposed. So it's kind of like Luke's insecure, and so he feels like he needs a master to teach him.
Well, and he also feels like he can help him.
True.
Like he did for his dad.
That's true, yeah. Because that's exactly his mindset. Where R2's kind of like, let's get out of here. This guy's nuts, And he's like, well, I helped my dad. I helped Vader and all this. It's actually a really good point. Yeah, because he says it.
Yeah.
But then I think, it even goes just deeper to contrast like good and evil and all that stuff. It's really interesting. It's a lot more than just a gimmick.
Right.
I think the last thing we've kind of hit everything that kind of ends with this chapter. The last thing I found interesting about this is R2 is very sentient in that he was like conversing with Luke, but like listing reasons like why Joruus is a
insane.
Sith. Yeah, and he's like, nah, this is like, because he's like, come on, R2, like, what's really, blah blah blah, and R2's like, okay, like, and Luke's like, he's probably just insane. I'll just resolve there, but
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, crazy chapter though. Like, and it is weird because again, we have a third person perspective, and we know a lot that they both don't know, and it's weird. You're like watching him, and you're like, Luke, get out of there.
Right.
Like, it's bad.
I'm surprised how long he stays with him, but we'll get there.
Chapter 15.
Bell
Chapter
Ibis.
15. Yep, we go
Bell-Ibis.
to
Bell Ibis.
Bell Iblis.
Bell-Ibis.
I think it's Iblis.
Iblis.
Bell Iblis. You're back to Han and Lando with Bell Iblis, and Han and Iblis are just having a good old time at the start of it. Iblis is telling him all these stories, and Lando's just not really into it.
He doesn't trust him.
Yeah, Han honestly kind of let his guard down and is like connecting with this guy from his past that he forgot about, and from like a Corellian and like all this stuff. Right. It's just, he's just kind of into it, and Lando's like, hey, like, let's talk about Leia and your relationship, because again, Lando's like, we're here to figure out, is there corruption, and what's your role in it, like all this stuff's lining up. We're on a mission,
like, get back on track.
Yeah, and you see some classic,
because Lando also really wants to get back to his mining. He keeps bringing that up.
He's all about the money. It's very classic Lando Calrissian and Han Solo.
Yeah.
And they fight and argue. And even at one point, Lando's like, all right, come on. Just say it. Just say it straight to me. And Han doesn't even like look at him and says something, and they're like arguing, but then they come to like a resolve.
But they just love each other like brothers.
Yeah, they're just two like very strong-willed dudes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like how he's like, I'm losing money every day I'm here. Like let's get going. But then again, kind of in a counter move, Bel Iblis starts asking about Mon Mothma. And so he starts questioning Mon Mothma.
Mm-hmm.
And and the next chapter, it goes a little bit deeper into that, but you're kind of like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, what's
like,
going on with Mon Mothma?
Yeah, like why are you asking that?
Yeah.
And then Lando and Han
argue
afterwards, yeah. And that basically they're like, Lando starts questioning, like, I don't think Iblis is who he says he is. Like, I think he's fake. Like, the mythical Bel Iblis who died came back with the Dark Fleet and all this, you know, because basically they find out, like, he had the Dark Force fleet, you know, the Katana fleet. And, they question it. And so there's kind of this, oh my gosh, is this a Imperial plant, you know, all this. But basically kind of how this ends is you do find out Iblis has a Dark Force, those very dreadnoughts that they left in from whatever the planet was from the top of the book. That's the Katana fleet, the Dark Force, you know, cool tie-in.
Yep.
And Fay Leia is staging a coup. He basically wants to step in if there's distrust sown, and if Akbar's removed, he can stage a coup and he can take over, and he wants the Dark Force as part of that.
Do you think Leia is just like a dude who wants control, or do you think he's actually a bad guy working for the Empire?
I think it's just a Bothan. You know, I don't think he's necessarily working for the Empire. I don't know. Like, do you know, or are you just asking me in general?
No, I'm just asking.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just I just think he's a Bothan. I just think he's kind of like, he just disagrees with some things, and he wants power, because they start diving into Bothans for a little bit, and essentially they're like yeah, he just wants to be in control, and he wants that power.
Yeah, that's the sense I get. Like, he's not like on the Empire's team or necessarily working with them, but he just kind of cares about himself, and he's kind of just a bad person. Maybe not evil, like per se, like the Emperor or Thrawn. I can't say either of their names. But he's just a bad person who cares about himself.
Well,
we'll find out.
And shout out to Magneto Alex, because he said we're just going to hate him more and more as we continue in the EU. Just basically like, yeah, you'll just...
Oh, he goes past this?
Oh, I guess he gets way, way worse. I know nothing about him, honestly. So I'm interested to see that.
I was just hoping he'd be done with this after this trilogy, but okay.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he is. I'm not sure yet, but I just know he said we'll hate him even more.
Well, he's well written, because I do hate him.
Who do you hate more, Leia or Pong Krell?
Oh,
gosh, Pong Krell. I'll speak for you.
Yes, him right now, because he was murdering clones.
Hashtag Pong Krell did nothing wrong. Okay.
Leia is just a jerk at this point. He starts killing
just
people.
Slimy. He's like Randall from Monsters Inc. That's how I view him. I do. We have a toddler, so we watch a lot of kids' movies. I'm like, little slimy snake. Okay. What?
That's good.
You see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right on.
Now every time I see his name or read it, and that's what I'm trying to picture Randall. Yeah.
The stupid little glasses.
Well, no, he squints now because...
Oh, yeah, that's right. Anyway, this isn't a Monsters Inc. lore deep dive.
In the Monsters lore, yeah, we see that Mike Wazowski
knocked his glasses off, or told him to take them off because it'd be more scary.
Yeah.
Anyway, There's a Clone Wars reference in this chapter, which I thought was sick, because at this point there wasn't nothing about that, you know. At least to the best of my knowledge, it's not fleshed out like it is today.
They must have had some sort of, I mean, because they reference it in A New Hope.
Well, yeah, but I'm
So
saying, like, there was, like, by the early 2000s, there's, like, shows and movies
Right.
and books, and the Clone Wars multimedia project, like, it was in full force.
Mm-hmm.
But I love those references, because knowing where it is in the timeline of publication, I'm like, that's really cool. I love that stuff.
Yeah, they did a good job.
I wish I could have experienced it in that order, but I love this way. Okay, chapter 16. Timothy Zahn, maybe this is like a meta-analysis of his writing style, but he's getting into this rhythm of giving everybody 2 chapters. It's like, it'll be like, he like builds tension, and he leaves you on a cliffhanger, and then he like resolves it. But like Mara and Luke, I think he's kind of given 1. It's kind of this like flash.
Mm-hmm.
He's keeping them in mystery, at least to this point in the book. So this continues with Han and Lando. Basically, what we didn't say, they get like escorted to like a hotel, and
Yes.
part of their conversation was Lando's like, look at all this. They said that they would leave every like year to 3 years.
He's like, how's this all established and set up?
He's like, nope, all this. And part of how he knows the Dark Force, I thought was kind of a gimmick. He was like, look at the chair. Underneath the chair, there's blue and gold fabric that was only on the Dark Force during this period of, you know, the Rebels, whatever. Which I was like,
I bought it.
I mean, he is into like capes and fashion and stuff,
Yeah.
you know. But I was like, it didn't bother me. But I was like, okay, interesting.
He works with and sees a lot of ships and
True. It's just very like, oh, that's interesting, you know. But they weren't exactly like hiding it. They're trying to. But so anyway, they get this idea. Chapter 16. We're gonna leave our hotel. We're gonna go try and find. Lando's like, hey, I saw this repeater console. If we get there, I can figure out how many people were on the ship. Because then they're like, wait a second, they kept us in our ship, so we wouldn't see they're on the lighter crew because of the way that they're like slave rigged and all this stuff. So it's really cool. They're like on a mission now. And so Han is Han. He's using his charm to be like, hey, like, I want this old bottle of whiskey, basically. And the bartender's like, oh, I have this. And Han's like, no, it's not good enough. Like, let's go in the back there, you know. And Han just goes and talks liquor for a while and distracts him while Lando looks at this repeater console. And when Han comes back out, Lando's basically being held at gunpoint by Cena.
yikes.
Yikes is right. And Cena's like, with me. And she's like harassing him, like, why would you leave your hotel? All this kind of stuff, right? Anyway, find out Cena wants them to position for Iblis to rejoin the Republic, to join the new Republic, really. And she's like, he's never going to do it himself, so you need to do it for him. And there's all of if you're into politics, this is a good politics chapter. All this politics about Phaleia and Iblis. It's all about the history of Iblis and the Dark Force, all of this really interesting stuff. Basically, you find out Mon Mothma isn't the saint she is
Portrayed to be.
Yes, exactly. Finish my sentence the best way.
Which was a little heartbreaking.
Yeah, I had heard, I kind of knew inklings of that, but it wasn't like something I could readily call to memory. But so it's interesting kind of like going deeper into that. Yeah, because I mean, in the original trilogy, she's like a saint. You know, she's like the one leading the charge.
Yep.
But yeah, you find out that Iblis brought these 3 resistance groups together. One was his resistance group, one was Mon Mothma's, and one was Bail Organa. Which I was thinking, I'm like, at this point, was the only reference of Bail Organa in A New Hope? I don't know. I'd have to look.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I was like, in my mind, you know, I picture the prequel Bail Organa and stuff.
Right.
But then I'm like, wait. They don't like dig into him.
Interesting point.
Anyway. Irrelevant to this conversation. But it was called the Corellian Treaty. They came together against the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And Iblis was the one who did it. And he was leading the charge. And then Mon Mothma, after the destruction of Alderaan, took over.
Yep.
And Iblis kind of felt like a defeat a little bit. And Bail kind of like pulled Mon Mothma back. And so she's just like super charismatic.
Mm-hmm.
And where Iblis had military strategy, she had charisma.
Right.
So then they go to the Lady Luck, I believe, right? Yeah, they were going to go to the Lady Luck and leave. I think that's what it was. And Iblis is waiting there for him. And basically, you just see a different Iblis.
Right.
He's like super... Then like his true self comes out and you realize, nah, he's been in hiding.
Right.
Super ashamed. And he just tells him to leave. Like, I'm not interested in joining. Just leave. So before the kind of like last little part of this, anything about all that Iblis, Han, Lando, Cena stuff?
Nope.
All right, so the final thing for this chapter is that Thrawn thinks Leia is on Endor, so he's totally wrong because she was right under his nose. So they're gonna go to Endor, and he orders an extension of the public shaming of Kabarak. He starts tripping about... He's always tripping about Mount Tantus. It's always like people are going to find out. They're going to find out what we're doing, and they're going to want to research all this. He's like... In the back of his mind, he's always thinking about Mount Tantus. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't want anybody near it. He wants to guard it with his life. And you find out that he captured Card.
Yep.
Super cool. Before chapter 17, anything? All right, then.
We covered it.
Okay, so chapter 17. This is a Mara chapter. You find her at a spaceport. This was really interesting. Wedge comes in.
Yeah.
I was like, interesting. Okay.
And we get to see or read a lot more about him.
Oh, awesome. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for us to go through like the whole X-Wing series too. Mm-hmm. That'll be really cool. Side note. But yeah, Wedge helps her leave the spaceport, and then she's being brought into a Star Destroyer and all of this stuff. And basically she was saying, they're like kind of giving her a hard time. She's like, oh, well, I want to talk to Thrawn. And she's like being pretty like brass.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like don't know how to deal with her. And she's like, well, tell him, the Grand Admiral, that he knew me as the Emperor's hand. And then that's like the magic code that gets her in. And Thrawn takes her to Endor, and then there's this whole really awesome Mara and Thrawn scene where she's standing up to Thrawn, and
yeah, it's awesome.
She does a really good job, but then you see the fear in her where she's like, oh crap, I stood up to Thrawn.
Yeah.
And he's like pushing back even harder.
Right.
And there's this whole thing where he like tests her identity, and basically like, how do I know you're really who you say you are? And he's like, on the day we met, on your right shoulder, you wore this. And he's like, pulls up all these images around her, like this hall of images and stuff. He's like, one of these in this room is the one that you were wearing. Which one is it?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I'm like,
he's
dude,
got a very good photographic memory.
Yeah. I'm like, if you were to be like, on the day we met, you were wearing this shirt.
I don't remember what I was wearing earlier today.
True. When we met, I was probably wearing like gray sweats and a white t-shirt. That's all I wore.
Or no, when we met, you were wearing your work uniform.
True. An
so
ugly maroon canvas Regal Cinemas polo.
So we do know what each other were wearing when we first met.
With black slacks.
We were matching.
We were matching.
Which
against my will.
He hates matching.
I do hate matching people. I do it a few times a year.
For me?
There's a few exceptions, but other than that, yeah, I hate matching with a passion. Anyway, side note, now you got me all riled up about matching clothes. Okay. There's this really interesting thing where Mara, like, it's like a flashback where she's like, or maybe it's like PTSD, I'm not sure what it was. Maybe you would know. When she hears the Emperor tell her to kill Luke.
It's reoccurring.
So it must be some flashback thing, or I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
That's a trip. It's really a trip because it's like total insanity for a second. It's like
those all caps.
It's like brainwashing.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's like this like screech. It's nuts. Anyways, totally tormented. But then it's like where she's like, if I kill Luke, maybe this will just stop. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, we're starting to see. No wonder she hates Luke.
Yeah.
For many reasons. But she makes this barter with Thrawn, which I'm like, okay, let's pause there. Like, what do you think about this whole like Mara and the standing up and the bartering and all that?
I mean, I thought she was pretty awesome because I haven't really seen anyone stand up to Thrawn yet. I think this is like
it's the first one we've seen.
The first one, so that was super cool. But about the trade, I don't know what I think about that because I still don't fully know her motive.
Yeah, because
I don't want to go into kind of what happens because we're going to cover that. But even when I was in that moment, if I'm pretending I'm reading that chapter and I don't have context for the rest, I was like, yeah, I'm not really, because I don't really know her well enough. She's kind of been playing both sides. Not both sides as the Empire. She hasn't really been playing with them, but kind of more so just out for herself, not on someone's team.
Yeah.
And so she's going to do what's going to be best for her. And I'm like, you better not mess with Luke, Han, and Leia and Chewie. You know, that's me.
She's like in survival mode.
Yeah. But yeah, at that point when I was reading that, I wasn't sure what her motive actually was. Yeah.
And yeah, the barter, I forgot to mention, I don't remember the exact details of it, but it's like, I'm going to get you the location of the ships.
Yeah.
Or the ships themselves, and you will pay card this crazy amount of money and Imperial stuff. So she's kind of like taking care of him, but then basically you're going to let me go, like all this stuff, right? And basically Thrawn starts saying that you weren't the only hand. You think you're special, but you're not. And at this point, I mean, I feel like I'm in the dark because I'm like, I don't know if that's true or not. I just don't know enough about her and that side of the lore.
Right.
I don't know if Thrawn's manipulating her or if it's true, but it gets to her.
Well, the thing about Thrawn, though, is he doesn't really lie.
It's true.
Like, he's not one to lie.
He has, like, no motive in lying.
Yeah. So that's kind of what makes me believe it.
Yeah. But actually, I think I said wrongly that Thrawn captures Card. I think it's like he wants to capture Card. Or does he capture him? I don't remember now.
He gets captured.
Okay, because I have him here in my notes. She has 8 days to deliver Card or the location. So I'm wondering if he was just saying like, oh, you don't know I have Card. Anyway, I don't know.
No, he was captured.
That's what I thought. So my notes were poor. But yeah, she's given 8 days. And then she's like, oh, great. Now I've got to figure this out. But then Thrawn knows, basically he's deduced through his logic, very different from Lando's, that Bel Iblis, his fleet, is the Dark Force. And so this whole thing with Pelion and stuff where it's like, yep, it's a Katana fleet, and he's figured it out. And he charges Niles Ferrier.
I smell him.
Yeah, he changes his role to now find Solo. It's like find Han, because it's like find him, we find the Katana fleet. So it's like he's like, okay, like Mara, like I'll either kill you or you'll find it for me. Mm-hmm. He's like, also Niles Ferrier, who I had you looking for card, and all of that's resolved now. Go look for Solo.
Yep.
Very cool.
Chapter 18.
Chapter 18, the last chapter we are covering in this video. And we're going to keep doing these week by week till we're done, and we move on to the next book. But chapter 18, again, you can have a split chapter here, but the first part of the chapter is Leia planning on how to leave with Kabarak. And basically, what's the contrast was really interesting between Mara and Leia, because Mara stood up to Thrawn, and Leia is basically paralyzed in fear about Thrawn. So that was just a very interesting, just kind of like you had like Luke and Jaruus, and now you have like Mara and Leia.
Well, Leia hasn't really had any action or Jedi training.
No.
Whereas Mara was
absolutely
trained by the Emperor. So
and
I feel like she's going to naturally.
For sure. And she says that many times, you know, where she's like, I'm just a politician, you know, and.
Because of freaking Mon Mothma, whoever won't let her train.
Yeah, Mon Mothma, yeah. The threads are connecting. Yep. You see some stuff going on. But then she's just like not in a good mental space, because she's like freaked out about Thrawn. She's thinking about Kabarak. She's thinking, how do I get out of here? You know, like how do we break him out? You know, but then she's thinking the matriarch's going to turn on her. She's like, I know the Noghri start to distance, and she's distancing. Leia's a hot mess. She is just, and she's pregnant. And she's thinking about her babies. I'm like, okay, she's definitely pregnant. She's like, I mean, she's in a rough place, but she's freaking out. So, yep. And then the last part of this chapter, you have Han and Lando talking about Fade Leia, Luke and Leia. There's this whole conversation, and then they get a message from Luke, but it's suspicious. It doesn't seem right. Niles Ferrier.
And his scent.
This guy.
They smell him. Again.
They do. They bring it up.
Every time.
I'm like, how many freaking cigars does this guy smoke to the point where
well, it's intentional. He wants people to know.
You know what we should do?
What?
We should make a Niles Ferrier
cologne
fragrance line.
Yes.
And sell it to the 5 EU people who would buy it.
Yes.
I know that there's more EU fans than that, but who's going to buy a Niles Ferrier cologne line?
Who knows? Maybe it'll make us rich.
True. We'll make up a false persona, and there'll be people who be like, isn't that the guy from the Thrawn trilogy? But yeah, Niles Ferrier is trying to pull a fast one on him. Again, he's like, I want to find out about the Katana fleet, you know? Because remember, they left and stuff, so they're not on the planet anymore. So he tries to bargain about finding it together before the Empire. So he's like, hey, we'll turn on the Empire. We'll do this. I'll give you these ships. And if they want to if the New Republic wants to buy the remainder for a good price, they can.
You just can't trust anyone.
Yeah. And it's a trap. Yeah. And they know it. And, you know, they're like, sure, buddy, or no, we're not. I don't remember what they say, but basically they leave, you know. And there's a tracking beacon on the Lady Luck, and they're talking about it, but they don't know about the second one.
Yep.
You know,
it reminded me of Dwight from The Office.
Oh, jeez.
With the mallard.
With the mallard and the recording pen. That's so funny. He's like, what did he say? Like, the real recording device wasn't in the mallard. I'm not insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so funny.
So we talked about Star Wars, monsters, and The Office.
Eventually, we're not even going to talk about Star Wars. We're just going to talk about all the meme references that we can possibly connect to the book. But there's some, did I, because I was listening to this, there was a Wraith with Ferrier.
A race?
Wraith. It was like the shadow thing. Remember, like, that one chapter where, like, Lando and Luke came across Niles for the first time, and Lando and Luke were like, whoa, what the heck? There's this, like, shadow creature. That was the creature that went and put the tracking beacons on.
Yes.
So that, I was like, that thing is crazy. I want to learn more about those.
Yeah. And how do you say it?
I think Wraith.
Okay.
I think.
Works for me.
Yeah. But obviously you finished the book, so I know this is really hard to restrict.
I just finished it, like, what, 2 nights ago?
Yeah, and restrict your talking points. Yeah, we've just been working on some really big projects, and so the ball has kind of shifted from you to me in this project that we just finished, so I'm finally buying more time, like, to actually read this.
Well, and we started this after I was halfway through this book.
So I'm catching up.
So yeah, you're catching up, but also I think I'm waiting to start, what's the last one called?
The Last Command.
The Last Command, and then I'm actually going to read it as we go.
We'll be in sync.
Yeah, and then I can be more fresh.
There we go.
I couldn't wait to finish this. I had already started it.
Yeah, and that's how it goes.
So, and we'll see how I do. Good. We'll see how I do on staying on a schedule on the next one.
I mean,
or if I just keep reading.
I'll just have to keep up with you. That's what it comes down to. But as always, if you have made it this far,
thank you.
Thank you for listening to us ramble. This is just for us to be nerds and enjoy the EU. You can read with us or vicariously live it and experience it through us. But you can go to StarWarsBook.club. I'm so happy that
And where does that take them?
It takes them just to our YouTube page, but so they can see the most recent videos.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm hoping Lucasfilm will make me a lucrative offer to buy it back, but we'll see.
Okay, well, now we've talked about making the big bucks twice now.
I doubt it.
No.
But I just think
we just enjoy.
Yeah, I just think it's cool. Like Star Wars, we have StarWarsBook.club. It's cool. They have they have a book club. Why did they not take it? Their loss, our gain. But yeah, you can go there to stay up to date on the latest book club videos. You can join the Discord. Keep talking about this kind of stuff. There's crazy, awesome, nerdy conversations all the time in there. It's really cool. But with that, we are two Star Wars nerds, and may the Force be with you.
Always.
Always.